All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Quantum Alignment Show. And we're going to be talking about the mysterious mystical circuit. So we're going to have a lot of fun. This is something in human design that we don't talk about a lot. And, my take on it is probably a little bit different than other people's take on it. So you're going to get the mystical circuit a la moi. I want to, before we get rolling, let you know that we are posting a link for you to click on so you have slides to look at, or you can follow along if you want to take notes. The reason I wanted you to have the capacity to really follow along and take notes is because this is a little bit of a different stuff than you normally see with human design. And I want to invite you to sit with it and contemplate it because I think it's really beautiful and profound. I want to start with a gentle reminder, and that gentle reminder is this: we all have all of the human design chart. We sometimes say, when we start talking human design language, we say, oh, I have this or I don't have that. You all have all of the chart. When you have something white in your chart or open, you experience that energy from the world outside of yourself. You take it in, you amplify it. That means you get to explore that energy in a variety of different ways. And that is ultimately one of your paths to wisdom. If you have definition in that energy, that means you have sourced within you your own consistent experience of that energy. And let me just remind you that even though your experience of that energy is internally sourced and consistent, you still can grow and learn around that theme. So if you are feeling like, oh, I have something colored in my chart and I don't really like the way that I work with it, you're not stuck there. You always have the opportunity for growth and expansion. So as I'm talking about the mystical circuit today, I do want you to understand that I am looking at it in the context of the chart being a blueprint of possibility for our human experience. So this isn't just about your chart, although you might find some interesting elements in here that relates to your chart personally. So I encourage you, if you don't have your chart handy, get your chart out. And it's also about all of our experience. We are designed to be awakened, and to a certain degree, we are designed to speak to the identities that we craft for ourselves consciously and deliberately, and that an aspect of our definition of who we are, and consequently the direction that we take our life, comes not only from our own experience, our own awareness, our own conditioning, our own understanding, but also from our connection to spirit as source. And that by design, we are designed to recognize and be in the flow, or a deep connection, an inextricably intertwined connection between the life story we're living, your chart, and source. We are spiritual beings by design. And that's, I think, a highly comforting piece of information. So as I walk through this, just be aware that I'm going to be presenting this much more as a general expression of the possibility for humanity. And you may want to, as I said, follow along with the slides. So, all right, so we are going to revisit the mystical circuit, or the journey of the soul, or the path of awakening in human design. So when we look at the mystical circuit, this is where the mystical circuit is defined. So if you can follow along, I know hopefully this isn't as choppy on your screen as it is on mine. You'll see that the mystical circuit begins down in the root through the 1949, as well as the 3955, connecting the root center, which is the square at the bottom, to the solar plexus on the right. From the solar plexus, then the mystical circuit goes through the 3740 to the will center. Then from the will center through the 5125 to the G center. And then the G center through the 1020 to the throat. contained within this circuitry is the template or the blueprint for awakening into the truth of who you are, which is you as a spiritual being in service to the cosmic plan. Now, that's traditional. That's traditionally the definition of the mystical circuit. I always have to include the 54 when I talk about it, as well as the 41. I think these two gates, the 54 being the gate of divine spark or divine inspiration that initiates business and the creation of physical, tangible resources from an idea, and the place where we make ideas or dreams come true. And the 41, which is actually where the human design year starts. We always start the human design year every January, around January 20th, 21st. We start on the gate with the sun in the gate 41. The gate 41 is the gate of fantasy. And it's that spark of imagination that we receive in interaction with the world. So we see things, we experience things, and we think in response to our experience, oh, hey, what else can I build? The 41 embodies the idea that everything that's in physical creation, so if you sit down at your desk or you're looking at your computer right now, everything that's in front of you right now started first as an idea, a thought. And that gate 41 says at the beginning of every new year, what thoughts do you have? What ideas do you have that you'd like to bring into manifested form over the course of the year? So it's kind of cool. It's also kind of interesting that it starts down at the root, not at the head. That's a whole different class, and maybe we'll talk about that in our next quantum alignment show. We'll talk about the mechanics of creating and how it works in human design, because oftentimes our inspirations come from our experience in the physical world, not just, oh, I have an idea. Because as some of you may know from experience, that whole, ooh, I have an idea thing sometimes gets us into trouble if we're not following our strategy by type, right? So let's look a little bit more deeply into this circuitry as the circuitry of awakening. And I'm going to keep it really rudimentary and simple today, because I know that when we do the quantum alignment show, sometimes I have people who are very new to human design, and I don't want those of you who are more new to human design to walk away in need of some serious headache medication because you just got your brain slammed by data that didn't make any sense to you. So I want to try to ground it and keep it as simple as I can. And for those of you who maybe have a little bit more understanding or background in human design, I encourage you to kind of go to town with this in your own sort of awareness of the chart and your own understandings of what the chart means. But I will break this down and make it kind of simple. And I'm just kind of go sort of section by section through the circuit. When we talk about awakening and the process of awakening, one of the things that the human design system embodies so beautifully is what I call the 4 levels of consciousness. When we learn to surrender to our strategy by type, when we learn to really let go and live true to our design, we eventually move ourselves from what I'll call level 1 consciousness to level 4 consciousness. And that entire journey of surrender is actually kind of beautifully laid out in the mystical circuit. But to sort of set the tone for where we're going with understanding the journey that we take along the mystical circuit, I want to just talk about what I call the 4 levels of consciousness, and how sometimes when we are at various different levels in our evolution, we sometimes either bump up against ourselves or bump up against our design or bump up against the universe and struggle and wrestle a little bit until we can let go and surrender. Now, I just have to add a little caveat here. I have never in my life, and I'm getting older, on Monday I'm going to be 53, I think. I have never in my life met somebody who lives at level 4 consciousness all the time. Okay, as a human being, it is normal for you to bop back and forth between these different levels of consciousness, no matter how many years you've meditated, no matter how much crystal water you drink, no matter how many times you do intentions under the new moon or the full moon or whatever. We all are experiencing this push me, pull you cosmic evolution process. And sometimes we really nail it and get it right. And sometimes we are down at level 1 going wah, wah, wah. And if that's your experience in life, that means you're doing it right, okay? It's okay. There's no end goal here. Evolution is a spiral. And even when we go through the circuitry, it's spiral in nature. We get to the top and we define who we are. We go back down to the bottom and we create something new, something bigger, something better. And every time we go around a path of evolution, you get an opportunity to explore the levels of consciousness. You also get the opportunity to explore places where, even built into your own chart, you may have conundrums in your chart, places where you by design are designed to push against yourself as part of your learning process, as part of your soul's growth. And as you continue to go around that cycle and push against yourself, you deepen your understanding and you deepen your expression of consciousness. So level 1 consciousness says, I am a victim of reality. We all have lived this one before. Sometimes we live it several times on a daily basis. And again, if that's you, it's normal. So sometimes when we're in level 1 consciousness, we feel like we don't have any control over what's happening to us. We don't have any power to change the situation we're in. And it creates confusion sometimes, or victim consciousness, and causes us oftentimes to question our value or our love worthiness. In level 2, you watch the movie The Secret, right? And you realize, oh, my thoughts create my reality. I create my own reality. And there is a lot of power and a lot of truth in that consciousness. You create your own reality. Your thoughts trigger photon storms in your brain. Those photon storms trigger the production of neurotransmitters. The production of neurotransmitters triggers an emotional response. That emotional response in turn stimulates your heart coherence and the magnetic resonance field of your heart, which we in human design call the magnetic monopole. And you in turn attract into your reality things that match your thoughts. Your thoughts are very powerful. And one of the beautiful things about human design is it answers the question, who is the I that's creating my reality, right? You gotta know who you are if you're gonna create your own reality, because you wanna make sure that who you're being is gonna reflect the reality you wanna be living in. So it's a really powerful step in leveling up your consciousness, right? You have control over your experience of reality. In level 3, we start to understand that our destinies are interconnected, and that when you are driving through a traffic light and you're hoping for a green light, you're creating a green light with your consciousness, there might be somebody else doing the same thing coming at the opposite direction. And that sometimes you get the green light and sometimes they get the green light. And that when we are creating a reality together, that we have to understand not only who we are, but who you are, you individually. We also understand who we are and learn how to work together in community as collaborative, co-creative beings consciously. We're already doing it unconsciously, but to do it consciously to not only change the experience of our own personal reality, but to begin to change the experience of our collective reality. And that's a beautiful, beautiful step that we take in the evolution of consciousness, and certainly one that I think is a vital place to be coming from as we face the challenges on the planet that we are facing today. In level 4 consciousness, again, we're not like playing a computer game. It's not like you get to level 4 and you're done. You get to go back and forth, and you probably will. In level 4 consciousness, you start to realize that there is an infinite intelligence that is ordering itself through you, and that when you learn to trust in the cosmic plan, the evolutionary plan for existence, and the loving nature of the evolutionary plan, and you start to realize that when you surrender and let go and let that plan work through you, the reality that we begin to create transcends, of course, not only what we believe is possible, the limitations sometimes what we think is possible, but it overrides our own personal ego, our own personal places of attachment to outcomes. It overrides our programming, our conditioning, even our genetic code to work through us to create something bigger than we could imagine creating on our own, which to me is really the beauty of understanding the nature of strategy. that each one of you, by design, by type, has your own unique human design strategy. And that your strategy, when you learn to surrender to it and trust it and work with it and play with it, becomes the interface for your individual story, your individual life with the cosmic plan. And that when you let go and you allow the cosmic plan to create through you, you then serve not only your own reality and your neighbor's reality, but you actually begin to take your place in the unfolding of the story of the evolution of humanity. So let's break these down. Let's break these little gates and channels down, and let's talk a little bit about what do each of these gates and channels mean in the context of this cycle of learning to surrender to the flow of the bigger cosmic plan through you. So let's start first with the gate 54. So the gate 54, you may have remembered last week if you listened in when I was here with Michelle Van de Pest and we were talking about business, you may remember that the gate 54 is part of the business circuit in the human design chart. And I love that the business circuit actually starts with the 54, because to me, what this is really telling us is that the creation of business, and business has the purpose of transforming pain into something of value. The business has the role of looking at patterns in existence and rewriting patterns so that we can create something even better. Business on its own has evolution kind of built into it. And because business starts on the 54, the idea of turning something from pain, or transforming something from pain into value, or pain into power, always starts with a divine spark, a divine idea. The energy for business and the initiation of business is the same as the energy for enlightenment. And that business in and of itself is actually a spiritual or an enlightened endeavor. So what we see from this gate is that business comes from divine inspiration, and that ambition, real ambition, not ambition for the sake of ego, but ambition for the sake of what's the biggest, greatest thing I can create for the sake of exploring the creative process. That question becomes the answer to divine inspiration and ambition. We learn that fulfillment comes in the creative process from letting go. That 54, look at it way, way down at the bottom of the chart here, is projected energy, meaning it's energy that has to be recognized. And that recognition, because this energy flows through the spleen, doesn't happen until the timing is right. So there's a certain amount of humility in business that says no matter how freaking awesome your idea is, and I know many of you have really brilliant business ideas, that idea won't come to fruition until the timing is right. And that for us to serve a divine spark or divine idea, we have to surrender to the idea that the timing isn't dictated by us. We have to follow the timing. In fact, that's one of the parts of moving into level 4. You're not in charge of time as much as we wish we were, right? So letting go and trusting in the timing creates a greater level of success, because you sustain your energy when you're not fighting time. So the mantra for this, or the affirmation for this might be, when I surrender, my ambition is divine ambition, and I allow the fulfillment of divinity through me as its agent. That's my business mantra. The second gate that we're going to explore, again, these are the ones that I added to the circuit because I think they're really important and very powerful, is the gate 41. Gate 41 is, as I said, the gate of fantasy. That fantasy is the divine spark. Again, there's divine spark here, and it comes from going out into the world, experiencing the world, and getting an idea based on what you experience in the world. This isn't, oh, I have an idea. This is, oh, let me interact with the third dimensional world. Let me be here on this earthly plane and really interact and experience the world. And in response, I'm saying response not in the generator way, but in the regular English way, in response to what I'm experiencing out in the world, let me pay attention to my ideas, my thoughts, my inspirations. Let me explore through my questioning what else is possible in the human experience. So this 41 asks the question, what else is possible? I have this really great computer here. It does amazing things. What else can it do? right? That's the exploration we go on. And then as soon as we begin to ask that question, we move into imagination, right? We start to imagine, well, it could do this, or it could do that, or it could do this. This is where oftentimes our creative ideas come first in the form of fantasy or even fiction, literally. Science fiction, for example. If you go back and you read old science fiction novels, like from, you know, like maybe science fiction stories or Ray Bradbury, right? Or even George Orwell. I don't particularly like that some of that stuff's true, but it is. You know, you read, you know, these old science fiction stories, even Gene Roddenberry in Star Trek. A lot of this stuff is starting to come true, right? Those sparks of ideas, those fantasies, that imagination shows up early. I know, Cindy, you're going to jump out on that, aren't you?
Oh, well, you know, I live long and prosper. But there was a Paige had in the Zoom room had a question, and I think it came
Yes.
up. What's the difference between timing and action? She was waiting to respond. So how do you, I mean, especially when you were going with the divine timing?
When the timing is right, you will get something to act upon based on your strategy. So let me break it down into the 5 types. If the timing is right, if you, let's say you have a business idea, or you have a fantasy, something you're wanting in your life. And while you're waiting, you're calibrating your energy, you're visualizing it, you're imagining it, you're joyfully anticipating having the experience at some point in your life. You're not freaking out about it, you're not worrying about it, you're not stressing about it, you're surrendering, right? So you're relaxed and you're playing with the idea and you're enjoying it in imagination. While you're laying that energetic foundation for that opportunity or that experience, the cosmos, the quantum field is going, okay, let's bring this down into this reality here. When it collapses or it manifests in your reality, when the timing manifests in your reality, you're a manifester, you're going to have that inner sense, whatever it is for you as a manifester, and it's a little bit different for every manifester based on their chart. You'll have that inner sense that, okay, the timing is now right, I can get in my creative flow and go do it. If you're a generator or a manifesting generator, you'll get something to respond to. It'll show up correctly for you according to your type. If you're a projector, you'll get an invitation or a recognition of some kind. And if you're a reflector, you'll still have to wait out your 28 days, but you'll know that you're getting to the end of that waiting cycle and you're about to feel the readiness of the timing for you to take action. I hope that answers that for you, Paige. So the mantra here for the 41, or the affirmation for the 41, is, my ideas and inspirations are the sparks that initiate creative expression. I trust in timing and await for the fulfillment, never wavering in my focus. The next little bit that we're going to look at is the channel 1949. This is in traditional design called the channel of love and marriage. This is the place where intimacy happens in the chart, where we, through our connection to each other, create bonds and create connections. Well, obviously, if we have connections, we have connections. So it's also the place where we are connected energetically to the mammalian kingdom. The 19 is part of the chart that all mammals have. Humans are the only ones who have the 49. And so we need, in the past, in our old designs, we're emerging into a different design now, but we needed to eat meat to stay grounded. Eating meat kept us in our third dimensional experience. It kept us grounded on the earth energy. As we break this bond, because as we're evolving, this channel is actually changing in the way that it works and it's coming apart. Our need to eat meat to stay grounded and to be part of the earth energy is changing. So if you have felt an urge in the last few years to stop eating meat or to move to a plant-based diet, that's probably because you're experiencing certain elements of this evolutionary shift that we're in the midst of. That's another whole quantum alignment show, which we could do later. But this channel is all about having this being and sensing what's necessary to create good, strong, and loving bonds. Because this energy is actually in the midst of a shift right now, the ways in which we bond are changing. It used to be just think about this for a minute, and this is sort of a sobering thought. Marriage used to be a business contract. I mean, it still is technically a business contract. It's actually a legal contract, right? But it also used to be a business deal, right? You give me 6 goats, I give you my daughter. If we have a war, fingers crossed, we'll be on the same side, right? It was a business agreement that kept peace, that helped resources get spread around, and women were basically commodities that you gave away in exchange for goods, right? Now that this energy has changed, we now have more power to choose. We also can see where intimacy and becoming more connected to each other is part of awakening. And our relationships help define who we are. And our relationships also become the stimulus for our personal growth and expansion. It also shows us again that we are connected to the natural world, that we cannot evolve into awakening. You cannot be awakened and not also in conjunction with that be a part of the natural world. So humans are not separate from the natural world. We're part of the natural world. And I promise you, we cannot evolve without each other. The natural world and the human world, or the human condition and the natural world, are inextricably connected. And in order to wake up, you need to be awakened along with a sense of responsibility for the natural world. And the natural world can facilitate for us tremendously the path of awakening. If you haven't read it yet, go read The Hidden Life of Trees. There is a whole ton of new research that's showing that when we go into nature, it not only changes our electrical energy, it's actually a great thing to do if you work in front of the computer a lot. It actually can get your energy field restored to its natural healthy balance. Being in nature actually decreases our cortisol, our stress response. It increases dopamine and serotonin. We feel better. We become more creative. Our capacity to think beyond our limited conditioning and our capacity to be reactive decreases in nature. And nature brings us the opportunity for expansion of not only our health and wellness and creativity, but also our spiritual powers. The channel 5539 is an incredibly important channel in the mystical circuit, and it's an incredibly important channel that we're all playing with right now in a big, big way as we evolve and shift as humans. This channel becomes the driving channel as part of the creative process in what I will call the quantum human, the emerging quantum human, or the new human. The human design chart is actually literally in the midst of a big evolution, meaning the chart itself is changing. And we've gone through this experience before. Around the late 1700s, the chart already went through a big evolutionary change. The heart chakra split into the G center and the will center. The solar plexus chakra split into the spleen and the emotional solar plexus. We saw with that big evolutionary change in the late 1700s, the emergence of the scientific revolution, the age of enlightenment. It heralded the beginning of a giant creative surge in our understanding of the world. And as we go through this next phase in evolution, which is supposed to happen in 2027, but evolution doesn't happen like, bam, done, you're evolved in this moment. Evolution is a process, a spectrum. And we've been evolving for a long time, hundreds and hundreds of years, but we're coming to a culminating point, an opening. And in this evolution that we're experiencing, as we go through it, we will emerge, I believe, on the other side, on the cusp of the beginning of a brand new, very, very power creative era, not error, era. And that creative era is rooted very strongly in the energy of this channel. The energy of this channel teaches us that when we trust in spirit as source, there's sufficiency here. When we trust in spirit as source, we have everything we need. And that for us to get aligned with source, we have to manage and consciously maintain a specific emotional vibration. So all of the stuff we've been doing in the last 15 or 20 years in personal growth and development, or even in more in the woo-woo circles, from the movie The Secret to, if any of you are familiar with Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks material, all of the stuff we've been talking about manifesting and emotional well-being and emotional vibrations and vibrational frequencies. I mean, we've actually been talking about this quite significantly since the 1920s with the emergence of quantum science on the field. obviously there are many gifted, enlightened people who were teaching this way before the 1920s, but we're certainly reaching this critical mass with this new understanding. And what we're learning is that when we use our emotional energy as our creative power, and I talked about that a couple of months ago on the Quantum Alignment Show, when we use our emotional energy as our creative power, and we use our emotional energy to calibrate our heart center, which is where the law of attraction lives in human design, then we also can move into an understanding or an awareness of, when I hold a certain quality of energy, a certain frequency of emotional energy, I can stay aligned with the understanding that I will get and have everything I need. I used to use the word abundance. I don't use that word as much anymore. I like to use the word sufficiency, because I think abundance is a word that we've gotten confused about. Sufficiency means you have everything you need. You want for nothing. And when we stay aligned with source or spirit, we keep our emotional energy, the quality of our vibration, we tend to it, we cultivate it, we consciously work with it. We keep ourselves in a state of emotional alignment with sufficiency. And here we learn in this channel that awareness of spirit is the true and only source of sufficiency. And that when you understand that you are enough, and that you have enough, and the world is enough, then you can trust. And when you trust, then you can take leaps of faith and create beyond what you think yourself can do. You can create the seemingly impossible, and you can know that you are fully supported. This is that place where we learn to take leaps of faith. And as we continue to grow and really deepen our understanding of quantum creativity, which is actually what my new book is about, which will hopefully be published in the spring, that quantum creativity is that ability to tap into this emotional frequency of energy and deliberately harness it for the sake of creating a life that is the reflection of your trust in spirit, your reflection of your own sense of value of who you are, and is a reflection of the value of who each and every one of us is individually and collectively. The next channel that we're going to look at is the channel 4037. In traditional human design, this is the channel that is the channel of bargains. This is the place where we carry the energy for making legal contracts and bonds. So this is the place where we have the energy for marriage is a good example. You know, the contract of marriage is here. Any contract we make, though, about I'll do this, you do this, you give me this, I'll give you that. This is where we make those kinds of agreements. The purpose of those agreements is to create resources, to create value. And interestingly enough, the energy for value, by the way, is located in the heart center. So again, this is that place where when your emotional frequency, because this comes off of the solar plexus, pointing to the will, the heart, when we calibrate and consciously tend to our emotional energy, this is the pathway that that energy takes to get to the heart. And that this channel is not just about community, which is the other thing that it is about. It's not just about contracts, it's also about community. And it's also about trusting that you have all the resources you need to not only be taking care of yourself, but to stand in a place of peace, personal peace and sustainable peace for the planet. We all know we have enough, and we all really get that. And we all live that and hold that frequency of energy, and we shift this collectively, then there will be peace. Because why do you need to fight if we all have enough? Because nobody's going to be more than, or nobody's going to have more than. That whole more than, less than model goes away. And we begin to create from a totally different place of not what can I get or what do I need to hold on to, but rather what else is possible for us on this evolutionary journey. There is courage here. It's the heart center, and it's the courage to accept yourself as a spiritual being. It is the courage to surrender to service, that courage to surrender to doing the right thing and holding to the right contracts, even if you're scared and you're afraid that maybe it won't work out for you. That place of trusting. It's that place where we find peace in accepting others. It's the strength to foster acceptance of ourselves and others, to not feel like somebody else is less than, or somebody else, because of their less thanness, is coming to take yours. And it is also the courage to know that you have support and enough, and to act as if you do, which is an incredibly inspiring force of energy to help us all do the right thing. When you know that you're supported and there is enough, then we have the energy and the courage then to take the bold steps to be in a place of service to others, to make sure that we lift that quality of enoughness, to not experience it only personally, but to make it the baseline for the planet. The channel 2551, sometimes called the channel of awakening. This is a really powerful channel. This is the connection between the personal self, the ego in the red, the will center, and the higher self, or the cosmic self in the G. That personal self, the ego, when it's living out the lowest expression, and that lowest expression of the ego comes from lack. I don't have enough, or I am not enough. When we think we don't have enough, or we think that we are not enough, we overcompensate. And we either overcompensate by hoarding physical, materialistic things, right? I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough, so I'm going to hoard. Or we do it by overcompensating with who we are, right? So that egotistical swagger, that being in your ego that we don't like so much, that feels very uncomfortable when we witness it, because we know it's overcompensating, right? So we overcompensate when we think we don't have enough. When we look at this channel, traditionally in human design, this channel is called the channel of awakening because it is the place where the ego dies to the bigger self, to the cosmic self. Our ego, our personal self, who we are, is designed to be in service to the world. That's not martyrdom, by the way. Martyrdom is just another expression of overcompensation. I don't think I am enough, so I'm going to sacrifice myself. That's not where we're at anymore. The age of martyrdom is over. So please, if you're martyring yourself, cut it out. Okay, you deserve better than that. It is that place, though, where the personal self dies for the sake of being a part of something bigger than yourself personally. And when you recognize the value of who you are, and that who you are holds such a unique place in the cosmic plan, that if you didn't exist, the cosmic plan would change. And you understand that value to such a degree that you're willing to serve yourself, take care of yourself, nurture yourself, love yourself, rest, and know that rest and nurturing yourself is vital, because it's in that place of restoration that you get reconnected to all the resources you need to continue to serve your place in the cosmic plan in the way that's important. When you get that, then you get to harness this energy in a very powerful way. But there's death in this channel. When you don't surrender your personal self to a place of service to the greater plan, then this channel serves sort of as a cosmic cattle prod. This channel has shock in here. It's shock that causes us to die to our personal selves for something greater. And so if you get out of alignment, we're actually designed to, if we get out of alignment, to be shocked back into the truth of who we are. So for many of us, sometimes our spiritual awakening, or the journey of the awakening of our soul, comes from some kind of shocking experience. Maybe you've had an accident, or something happened unexpected in your relationships, or some shocking event. A health challenge sometimes became the stimulus, the catalyst for you to awaken to your higher purpose, right? Sometimes that happens, there's so many different ways that happens, but I know you guys know what I'm talking about. That when we experience the pure energy of this channel, we recognize that sometimes unexpected cataclysmic events are there to wake us up to the bigger role that we play in the cosmic plan, the bigger purpose and meaning of our personal lives. Then we get to really explore this energy more deeply, and hopefully set ourselves up to not be shocked again. So when you start to get off your path, the cosmos shocks you back onto it. So here we learn that we honor the self as a vehicle for the divine. We learn to recognize that the personal self has finite power. You can only do so much with your willpower. But when you surrender, when you let go of your personal power, your spiritual self has infinite power. And that power then takes your life in the direction that it needs to go, because that G center is direction giving energy, right? When we surrender, then the G, the monopole, that law of attraction, electromagnetic force in our heart, that magnet, that attracting magnet, begins to draw into our experience the things necessary for us to change the direction of our reality. This is where that whole thy will, not my will, you're not really surrendering, maybe, I don't think necessarily to some personal God, but you're surrendering to the cosmic plan. And it's in that surrendering that you gain access to greater power, not less. It is also a place where we see the death of tribal and collective belief systems. This is a very personal transformation. And that sometimes this transformation goes beyond what our tribe, our family, or our collective, our systems have told us is possible for us. This is that place where we transcend the limitations of our identity and step into this place of being sacred stewards for divine light and divine direction. And from that surrender to that stewardship, or in harnessing that stewardship, we begin to serve something greater than ourselves individually. Last, but definitely not least, we have our final channel here, the 1020. The 1020 in traditional design is called the verbal gunslinger. It is, when you see it in relationship composites, or if you see it in somebody's chart, I have 2 children with this in their charts. And I have 1 child that I have an electromagnetic with this, so I know this energy really, really well. It can be an energy that when you're in it, or if you carry it, or if you're experiencing it in your relationships, it causes you sometimes to really say things sharply, meanly sometimes. People who carry this energy can have very pointed tongues and be very, very clever with the language that they use. And it can be harsh. And if you can encounter this energy, if you don't normally have it when you encounter it, sometimes you might find you say things that you would normally never say to anybody when you're in the energy of the 1020. So it's kind of funny sometimes when we think about it as being part of the mystical circuit, but it's also language, or the ability to use language, not just to tear people down, but to also lift people up. In this channel, we have, first of all, the gate 10, which is the gate of self-love. Sometimes when we're using the 1020 in a negative way, it's because we're questioning our own lovability. We're hurt. We feel victimized in some way. So we lash out verbally, right, at someone else because we're hurting. It's kind of like when, an animal gets injured, right? We lash out. But that 1020 is a voice from the G to the throat. It is a voice that speaks from I am. That's actually the voice of this channel, I am. When we look at spiritual literature, we know that when we say what we are, when we use the phrase I am, we are defining ourselves. We're putting language to our identity. And what we are, what we say we are, we ultimately have the capacity to become. That the phrase I am is a very, very powerful phrase. So when we use affirmations, for example, we're using I am statements, right? I am now wealthy. I am now spiritually fulfilled. I now have a powerful connection with Source. I am deeply supported. I am in service to the greater good, right? These are powerful, powerful creative statements that we make that come from this channel. But it's an interesting channel because it's a channel that has the potential, as I said, to give direction, to wake people up to the power of love, self-love in particular, but greater love to speak of, because the G is also the center for love. It is a place where we give direction to love. We speak direction to love. It is a place where we are enlightened, but it's what we call a projected energy in the chart. Enlightenment is not about jumping on a stage and proclaiming, I'm so enlightened, although those are awesome words, but it's about waiting until people ask or recognize your enlightenment. And from that interaction, that recognition and that invitation, you then begin to use language with someone else that lifts them up, that empowers them, and also gives them direction and gives you direction to be in a place of service. It is the empowerment of others through how you be. It's who you be that changes the world, not what you do. And that the process of awakening is about becoming more of who you are rather than doing more. So obviously, as you go through these different steps, there are different tangible, physical, spiritual activities that you can do on a consistent basis to maximize the way these energies work through you. And that's actually part of what I'm going to be talking about in my new class about the mystical circuit. What do you do with this information? How do you make it tangible, and how do you put it in practical ways in your daily practice of living? But ultimately, it's not so much about what you do, it's how you use what you do to cultivate who you are. And when you are who you are, and you are consciously expressing this embodiment of spirit, it's through that beingness that you make your contribution, because there's no one else that can embody you and your spirit and your life story in the way that you can. That's the unique role you play in the cosmic plan. And when you hold that space for yourself to be that fulfillment of who you are, your beingness inspires others to do the same. That's huge. And it changes the game to a certain degree around the conversations that we have around purpose. You know, we talk so much about, I'm going to live my purpose. I got to go do my purpose. You are doing your purpose if you're breathing right now. So hopefully all of you are breathing. So you're already doing your purpose, because your purpose is you. Being your purpose is part of your purpose, not doing your purpose. It's also about trusting in correct timing. You got to wait for the recognition, right? And it is defining the self in the flow of divine energy, and defining the self in the context of love. What were you about to say, Cindy?
Oh, well, as you're finishing up, there have been some questions, comments.
I'm ready for them. I am so ready for them. But I just want to end my little slide presentation with my wish for you today is that may you have the courage to take your place in the divine puzzle, because you have a place in this puzzle that no one else can occupy. And when you be that place, when you be in that place as yourself, you are serving the puzzle of life. You are making that puzzle come together beautifully, and we would not be who we are without you. So, all right, I'm ready for questions. Cindy?
You're ready for questions. Yay. Okay, so way back towards the beginning when we were talking about timing, Jay asks in the Zoom webinar, how do you know if the timing is not right versus the idea is not right for you?
That is such a great question. So here's how I would tell you. If the timing is right and the idea is yours, you'll get something in your outer reality that's going to let you know, and it'll happen to you correctly according to your type. So back with what I said when I answered Paige's question, if you're a manifester, you'll know it's the time to take action. If you're a generator, you'll get something to respond to. If you're a projector, you get an invitation. If you're a reflector, you'll have that opportunity to wait out that wave, or not that wave, the cycle of the reflector. So to a certain degree, you know, when I talked about level 4 consciousness, where you let the cosmic plan work through you, that all of this teasing about figuring it out, and what do I do, and all these little nuances that we talk about, like, well, how do you know when the timing is right? You know when the timing is right because if you live according to your strategy, the cosmos will unfold it in front of you in the way that's right for you. And strategy is not subtle. This is the thing that's really important to understand. I think sometimes we are afraid that strategy is going to be super subtle. Like if I'm a generator and I wait to respond, well, what if I miss it? You won't miss it because your whole body will go, that's the right one. You'll feel it. If you're a projector, you're not going to miss the invitation. When you get a real invitation as a projector, it's almost like it's delivered to you in slow-mo, and you'll feel it coming at you, and you'll get it. You can't miss it. And I think this is that place where we're afraid, we're going to screw up. We're going to get this opportunity to awaken, or we'll get this opportunity to do this great thing, but we'll miss the signals from the universe. You're not going to miss the signals from the universe. And the truth is, if it's really right for you and the timing is right, especially if you're emotionally defined, you'll get multiple signals. So next question.
I was going to say, you get multiple signals, or it'll come around again in a different form.
Totally. The cosmos wants you to follow the opportunity. If you're not listening for whatever reason, you'll get another chance. It's a very forgiving universe.
And this is, I know, another class that you probably did. What are the conundrums of a chart? I think you mentioned that way in
every chart has built into it what I like to call a conundrum, meaning everybody has aspects within their chart that are kind of against themselves. Not because you're designed to torture yourself, although we do a good job of that sometimes, but because you are designed to push against your own inner being, your own inner psychology, so to speak. And part of the purpose of that struggle is to deepen your own mastery of yourself, to master whatever it is you came here in this lifetime to master, so that you can become the fullest expression of who you are. Those places of struggle, those places of conundrums, are places where we have opportunities for great growth when we understand that, oh, I'm not screwed up or broken, but that instead I have a purpose, and part of my purpose is figuring out those places where I have hiccups in my own momentum, and when I can really go, oh, here comes that issue again, whatever it might be. And you start to go, that issue is that place where I forge my strength, my power, my understanding, my mastery of who I am. And you use that as your pushing off point for growth and expansion. You then become a more evolved expression of who you are.
Okay, and there's been a lot of questions both on Facebook and in the chat about, and I know that you talked about it at the very beginning, and Leslie wanted to remind the newbies about this. What if you only have, because we talked about what if you have none of the mystical circuit, or what if you have half?
See, I knew that was going to happen. That's why at the very beginning I said we all have all of the chart. So if you are going, well, I don't have any of the mystical circuit, I guess I'm a rock. No, I mean, no, you all have all of the circuits. You all have all of the mystical circuit in your chart. Some of you have it defined color in, some of you have it open. Wherever you have openness is where you have variability in how you experience that energy. Where you have definition is where you have consistency, but you all have it. And when we look at this information, I did the same thing last week when I talked about the business circuit. You all have all of the business circuit in you. It's part of being human. We have this potential for doing business when we're humans. When we understand that the chart is a template for the human experience, and we look at what are the parts in this template, it starts to give us a different way of engaging with our understanding of the chart, and most importantly, with our understanding of our human process. We are designed to be spiritual beings who surrender our personal story to a place of service. We are designed to be the fullest expressions of who we are, and that is the place of awakening for you, and that is your place of service in the cosmos. Your job in this lifetime is to be the best expression of who you are. That's your cosmic job.
So Leslie Van Winkle in the Zoom room was just commenting, there's no lack to our mystical connection. And for the people that don't, Leslie is a reflector. So it's not subtle for
Yes.
people like Karen use language and words that mirror what I've been writing and journaling about. So this is like a confirmation for me, a reflector that I'm reflecting what is flying through the quantum field. And it's comforting for me to get that reassurance that I'm in the right place.
You're in the right place, Leslie. Beautifully so, by the way.
And on Facebook, Leslie Marie Luther asked, what happens when two people are starting a business together? And one is, say, a generator and one is a projector. Both have to wait for something outside of themselves. Do both people wait until at least one of them receives an invitation or experiences having something to respond to? They can't really invite each other?
Yes. So here's what happens. And this is, again, that place where you have to have faith and experiment. I think we're so afraid that, okay, I'll have this idea and then I'll wait and nothing will happen. Or what do I do while I'm waiting? So here's what you do while you're waiting. While you're waiting, you build the foundation. You do all those things that you can do that don't rely on other people. Like you can build a website without waiting. You can write sales copy without waiting. You can create courses without waiting, or you can create a product without waiting. There are all kinds of things you can do while you're waiting to set the tone for the next step. First of all, I just want to lovingly and gently remind you, you will never not get another opportunity to respond to something. You'll get some sense that timing is happening. So don't be afraid about waiting. Sometimes we're afraid, oh, if I wait, nothing will happen. If you wait and nothing happens, what that really means is not so much necessarily that the timing was off. It might also mean that your energy is not ready yet. And that might mean that you're building something from a place of lack. Maybe you're trying to build a business because you hate your job. and you're burned out and you want to get out of your job and you can't figure out how to get out of your job. So instead of waiting for something else to show up, you decide to build your own business. It's not impossible to make a living that way. It's not impossible to create a successful business that way, but it's going to be really tricky. You can't build a business if your energy is not in a good place. So if something really feels like it's not happening, always go back and ask yourself, do I have the energy for this? Especially if you're a projector, by the way. And if you go to my YouTube channel, I actually did a whole 1-hour presentation on the secret reason why businesses fail. And I talk a lot about energy. But I definitely would say, do build the foundation. When your foundation is ready, something will happen. And probably the generator will be the one that gets something to respond to. And then the projector can manage the process as the generator unfolds the work. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's another really important quantum alignment show. We should revisit and do that again soon. Yes.
Or you also have the matrix world.
Yes, if you really want to get in on business and study, really get some serious support for how do you know when the timing is right and what do you need to do to be ready for when the timing is right. Last week, Michelle Vandepass was with me. If you want to watch the show from last week, we have a virtual online collaborative co-working space that we've created called the Matrix Makerspace. And we actually have very limited openings. We're doing a very small founding member opening launch right now. And actually, if you put, I'll go get the right link and I'll put it on here after we're done just to make sure I've got the right link. Technically, if you're not on the waiting list, you can't subscribe to join, but the registration actually closes Sunday. So you could get on the waiting list today and then get an invitation to join. It's $37 a month. And we have online coaching. You can log on at any time. You can come co-work with others. You can get technical support and get information about Facebook marketing, all that other stuff. All of that technical 3D stuff is there, plus, of course, human design and other pieces too. But I don't want to go too far into that. That's what's up for you today, though. If you're interested and curious about that, I'll post the link below.
And they can always watch last week's one.
Please watch last week's show. If you're in business, watch last week's show. So definitely watch last week's show.
There was we're coming right up on the hour. And
we are.
That says, what's the difference between the mystical circuit and the angelic circuit?
The angelic circuit is very different. The angelic circuit is actually something that was created by Eleanor Haspel-Portner of Unified Life Sciences. And this was based on her interpretation of different people's stories with angelic encounters. And she went through and interpreted their encounters and some of the timing pieces and constructed this entirely different circuit that she says is the design of angels and the design of people who are highly intuitive, often have large parts of the circuit, and intuitive beyond just being sensitive, but like people who know stuff. And basically what her bottom line is we're designed to interface with angels. There is an angelic realm, but that angelic realm is a key part of our human guidance system. And if you are interested in learning more about that, I do encourage you to go visit Eleanor's page, which I think is noblelifesciences.org. And not sure, but if that's not the right website, and Cindy, you might be able to go find it, look up Dr. Eleanor Haspel-Portner and human design. She did some very, very interesting esoteric stuff that's very cool. So, but it's not the same as the mystical circuit. It's very different. So, all right, I got to scoot because I'm in the middle of teaching an all-day training about the quantum alignment system.
Did you want to mention?
Yes, I do want to let you know that starting in the beginning of September, I'm going to be teaching a brand new course, which is a course I've never taught before, about the mystical circuit. It's going to have 10 videos. So they're short videos. I'm just going to give you a little bit of snippet every day so you don't get so your brains won't fry. Every day we're going to be looking at a different aspect in the circuit. And with that aspect in the circuit, I'm going to invite you to go back to your chart. Look at how do you experience that particular aspect in your own chart. We're going to look at practices and principles that you can incorporate in your daily life to help you live out the highest element of that part of the mystical circuit. And we're going to use the power of the mystical circuit to stimulate a deeper connection with you and source, and a deeper connection with you and the truth of who you are, so that you can really use this circuitry as a conscious way to harness your energy for the sake of creating a reality that is in service not only to yourself, but to the greater good. So Cindy's going to post the registration link in, is that right, Cindy? You have the registration link in the chat here on Zoom. And if you're on Facebook, we'll put it below on Facebook. And stay tuned. This class, by the way, is a class that is going to be offered only on a pay-as-you-can basis. The recommended donation for the class is $97. But I don't want anybody to not have access to this information. I try to once a month teach a class that is open to everyone. So if you feel like you really want to be in that class, you want to have access to this information, you want to use it for your own sake, pay what you can. There's no, every time I do this, I get emails from people who are like, I'm so ashamed that I can't give more. Pay what you can. I want you in the program. If you feel called, come to the program. It's not about the money. It's about your presence. Yes.
You have like a minimum, but if they can't they can't pay the minimum, if they just email us, we'll get them.
Yes, please. We do ask that if you can make a minimum donation of $20. If you can't, send us an email. You will not be left out. Okay. All right. That's it.
The training will start beginning around the beginning of September.
Yes, it'll start after Labor Day when we're all back in the game, right? We're all back in the game at Labor Day. So, all right. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you, Cindy, as always, for being my wing woman. Thank you all for holding your place in the cosmic plan. You might forget some days how important that is, but I just want you to remember that if you're not in your space in the cosmic plan, then the plan changes. That's how important you are. We are who we are because you are who you are. When you're not there, when you're not doing you, you're trying to be someone else, it affects all of us. So be yourselves, because we need you and you need you. So bye. Thank you. Have a great weekend.